Haven's Reach was a small colony on the edge of human space. It floated around a quiet yellow star, far from Earth and far from trouble. At least that was what everyone believed. 80,000 people called it home. There were scientists who studied the colorful clouds of gas that filled the nearby space. There were farmers who grew food in massive greenhouse domes. There were teachers and doctors and shopkeepers. There were families with young children who had never seen Earth except in pictures. Life was simple on Haven's Reach. People woke up, went to work, came home, and slept. They celebrated birthdays and holidays. They fell in love and got married. They raised their children and grew old together. It was a peaceful place, and the people who lived there liked it that way. They had no idea that something was watching them. The Kethvari were not peaceful. They were conquerors. For 3,000 years, they had traveled through space and taken whatever they wanted. They had crushed 6 different species under their boots. They believed that strength was everything, and mercy was weakness. Their ships had been hiding in the darkness for months, watching the little colony. They counted the people. They studied the defenses. They saw that Haven's Reach had only 200 soldiers and a few old satellites meant to push away space rocks. To the Kethvari, this colony was a gift. It was weak. It was alone. It was perfect. The attack came on a Tuesday morning, colony time. Children were walking to school. Workers were starting their shifts. Commander Yuki Tanaka was drinking her first cup of coffee in the military base when the alarm started screaming. She ran to the command center and looked at the screens. Her coffee cup fell from her hand and shattered on the floor. Dozens of alien warships had appeared in the sky above them. They were huge and ugly, covered in weapons. Before anyone could react, they started firing. The defense satellites died first. They exploded like fireworks against the black sky. Then the bombs started falling on the colony itself. Commander Tanaka grabbed the communication system and started shouting orders. Her 200 Marines ran to their positions. But she knew the truth. They were not soldiers meant for war. They were guards meant for peace. And now they were facing an army. The eastern part of the colony was hit first. Entire buildings vanished in balls of fire. Thousands of people died in seconds. The lucky ones died fast. The unlucky ones had time to understand what was happening. Tanaka ordered evacuation shuttles to launch, but the alien ships shot them down one by one. She watched families trying to escape get turned into dust. She heard children crying over the radio channels before the signals went dead. Her Marines fought back with everything they had. They fired missiles at the alien ships. They shot at the landing craft that brought alien soldiers to the ground. They died one by one, but they kept fighting. For 3 hours, they held their ground. For 3 hours, they gave everything they had. But it was not enough. It was never going to be enough. As the last of her soldiers fell around her, Commander Tanaka found a working communication system. Her hands were burned. Her uniform was torn. Blood ran down her face from a wound on her head. But her voice was steady as she recorded her final message. "This is Commander Yuki Tanaka of Haven's Reach," she said. "We are under attack by an alien force. They came without warning. They are killing everyone, civilians, children. We have lost the eastern habitats. The western habitats are burning. I have maybe 20 Marines left." She paused as another explosion shook the building around her. "If anyone hears this, remember Haven's Reach. Remember what happened here. Remember us." She kept the recording running as she picked up her weapon and walked outside to join her last soldiers. The transmission caught the sound of gunfire, explosions, and screaming. Then it caught silence. When the killing was done, the Kethvari were pleased with themselves. They walked through the ruins and took pictures. They laughed at the bodies. They collected things from the dead to keep as prizes. Then their commander sent a message to every nearby star system. The message was simple and cruel. "This is what happens to those who expand without permission. The humans are weak. The humans are nothing. If they try to fight back, we will do this to every one of their worlds. Humanity is warned. The Kethavari expected fear. They expected the humans to beg for peace. They expected to receive messages offering them whatever they wanted if they would just leave the other colonies alone. They waited for the crying and the begging to begin, but they did not understand humanity. They did not know human history. They did not know what humans had done to each other for thousands of years. They did not know that humans had stopped fighting only because they chose to stop, not because they had forgotten how. Commander Tanaka's message traveled through space for 14 hours before it reached Earth. It was picked up by a communication station on the moon and sent down to the planet below. Within 1 hour, every person on Earth had heard it. They heard the commander's steady voice. They heard the explosions. They heard the screaming. They heard the silence at the end. And something changed in humanity that day. Something old and terrible woke up. Something that had been sleeping for 200 years opened its eyes. The Kethavari had made a mistake. They had poked a sleeping giant. They had hurt its children. Now they would learn why humanity had worked so hard to stay peaceful. Because when humans went to war, they did not stop until there was nothing left to fight. The news of Haven's Reach spread across Earth like fire. Every screen showed the burning colony. Every speaker played Commander Tanaka's final words. People stopped in the streets to watch. They stopped in their homes. They stopped in their offices. And then they got angry. In Geneva, the United Earth Council was meeting in their great hall. Leaders from every nation on Earth sat in their seats, shouting at each other. Some wanted to send a message to the aliens and ask for peace. Some wanted to send soldiers. Some wanted to hide and hope the aliens would go away. Admiral Marcus Cole stood at the front of the room and waited for them to stop yelling. He was an old man with gray hair and cold eyes. He had spent his whole life in the military, and he had been waiting for this day for 30 years. When the room finally went quiet, he pressed a button. Commander Tanaka's transmission played again. The politicians had to listen to the screaming and the dying one more time. 43,000 confirmed dead, Cole said when it ended. The rest are missing. The aliens are called the Kethavari. They say they did this because we expanded into space without their permission. They want us to leave all our outer colonies. The shouting started again, but Cole raised his hand. They have about 1,200 warships, he continued. They have conquered 6 other species in the last century. They think they are the strongest force in this part of the galaxy. Elena Vasquez, the delegate from Argentina, stood up. She was a small woman with white hair, and her eyes were red from crying. Her grandson had been a scientist on Haven's Reach. He had been 24 years old, and he had loved plants. "How many ships do we have?" she asked. "Officially," Cole said, "Earth has a defense fleet of 300 ships, mostly patrol boats and cargo escorts. Nothing that could fight a real war." "Officially?" Vasquez repeated. Cole looked at the politicians in front of him. For 200 years, Earth had told the galaxy that it was peaceful. Humans explored space to learn and trade, not to fight. Human ships carried scientists and settlers, not weapons and soldiers. That was what everyone believed. It was a lie. "Council members," Cole said, "I think it's time you learned about Project Prometheus." He pressed another button. The screens changed to show something impossible. Deep under the surface of Mars, massive doors were opening. Doors that had been sealed for 100 years. Behind them were shipyards filled with warships, not small patrol boats, but massive battleships with weapons that could crack a moon in half. In the asteroid belt, what everyone thought were mining stations started to change shape. Metal plates slid away to reveal ship factories that had been building vessels in secret for decades. On the moon, communication towers that had pointed at the stars tilted downward. They were not communication towers at all. They were weapons platforms, each one powerful enough to destroy a city from space. The politicians stared at the screens with their mouths open. "For 200 years," Cole explained, Humanity has hidden its true strength. We remembered our history. We remembered how good we were at killing each other. We decided that the galaxy should never see that side of us unless it was absolutely necessary. He changed the screens again. Now they showed numbers, ship counts, weapon types, soldier numbers. We do not have 300 ships, Cole said. We have over 4,000. Every one of them was built in secret. Every crew member has trained their entire life for a war we hoped would never come. Vasquez spoke again. Her voice was not weak or sad anymore. It was hard as stone. How soon can they launch? They are launching now, Cole said. I gave the order the moment I heard Commander Tanaka's message. Across the solar system, human warships were waking up. Crews who had spent years pretending to be miners and scientists put on their real uniforms. Weapons that had been hidden behind fake walls were loaded and armed. Engines that had never been turned on roared to life. From Mars, 300 ships launched into the darkness. From the asteroid belt, 500 more joined them. From secret bases on moons and rocks throughout the system, thousands of vessels moved toward the stars. The whole process took 72 hours. By the end, the largest war fleet ever assembled by any species was heading toward Kethvari space. Admiral Cole watched the fleet from his flagship, the UES Prometheus. It was the biggest ship humanity had ever built, and it carried enough firepower to burn a planet clean of life. His communications officer reported that the fleet was ready. 4,200 ships, all armed, all crewed, all angry. Cole nodded and opened a channel to the entire fleet. Sailors of Earth, he said, you know why we are here. You have seen what they did to Haven's Reach. You have heard Commander Tanaka's last words. 43,000 of our people are dead because the Kethvari wanted to prove they were strong. He paused and looked at the stars ahead. They made a mistake. They thought we were weak because we chose peace. They thought our kindness was fear. They thought they could hurt our people and we would do nothing. His voice grew cold. They were wrong. Now we will show them what humanity really is. Not because we want war, but because some crimes cannot be forgiven. Some deaths cannot be ignored. Some monsters need to be stopped. He ended the transmission and gave the order. All ships, engage full space drives. We are going to war. The fleet vanished into the darkness between stars, and across the galaxy, species who had watched humanity with curiosity suddenly felt something new: fear. The Kethvari patrol fleet at Station Omega-7 was bored. 30 warships floated in the darkness, waiting for something interesting to happen. Their crews had been there for months, guarding a supply station that nobody ever attacked. Commander Vethrak was playing a game with his officers when the sensor started beeping. He walked over to look at the screen and smiled. Ships were coming. Human ships. How many are, he asked. 200, his sensor officer reported. Small and medium vessels, no heavy warships. Vethrak laughed. 200 little human ships against 30 Kethvari cruisers? This would be easy. This would be fun. He would destroy these humans and become a hero. All ships, battle positions, he ordered. Let us show these animals what real warriors can do. His fleet moved into formation. They had done this many times before against many different species. The Kethvari were masters of space combat. They had never lost a battle when the numbers were this close. The human ships came closer. They were moving fast, faster than Kethvari ships could go. Vethrak frowned at this, but was not worried. Speed meant nothing against Kethvari weapons. Open fire when they are in range, he commanded. His weapons officers waited. The human ships grew larger on their screens, almost in range, almost ready to die. Then the universe turned inside out. 300 more human ships appeared behind the Kethvari fleet. They came out of fold space like ghosts, already firing. Vethrak screamed orders, but it was too late. His ships were caught between two forces, and both forces were shooting. The first Kethvari cruiser exploded in less than 10 seconds. Human weapons were nothing like anything they had seen before. Metal slugs traveling at impossible speeds punched through shields like they were not there. Balls of fire that burned hotter than stars melted through armor. Missiles that seemed to think for themselves found every weak point. Vethrak watched his fleet die. Ship after ship vanished from his screens. Explosions lit up the darkness like angry stars. His own cruiser shook as human weapons found their mark. "Return fire," he screamed. His ships tried. They shot everything they had at the human fleet. But the humans moved like water, sliding away from attacks that should have hit them. Their point defense systems shot down Kethavari missiles before they could reach their targets. Their shields held against weapons that should have destroyed them. This was not a battle. This was a slaughter. In 11 minutes it was over. 30 Kethavari warships had become 30 clouds of broken metal and dead bodies. The human fleet had not lost a single vessel. Captain Reza Ahmadi stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance and looked at the destruction. He felt no joy. He felt no pride. He only felt a cold determination to see this war through to the end. "Send a message to their command frequency," he ordered. "Tell them we are coming." The message traveled across Kethavari space in hours. When it arrived, it brought panic with it. Other reports came too. Human fleets had appeared at the edges of Kethavari territory in a dozen different places. They were not small raiding parties. They were full battle groups with hundreds of ships each. And they were not defending or hiding. They were hunting. War Chieftain Kethmar received the reports in his palace on the Kethavari homeworld. He was the supreme commander of all Kethavari forces, the most powerful warrior of his generation. He had conquered 3 species himself. He had never known fear, until now. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our intelligence said the humans had 300 ships total. Where did these thousands come from?" His advisors had no answers. They had studied humanity for years. They had watched human space carefully. They had seen only peaceful traders and curious scientists. They had seen nothing that suggested humans could do this. But the burning wreckage of Kethavari ships proved that everything they knew was wrong. Kethmar made a decision. He would gather every ship in the Dominion, every warship, every armed transport, every vessel that could fight. Over 1,000 ships would come together in one mighty fleet. They would find the humans and crush them with overwhelming force. "They have surprised us," he told his commanders. "They will not surprise us again. When our full fleet assembles, these humans will learn that their tricks cannot save them from our strength." His commanders agreed and hurried to obey. Ships began moving from every corner of the Dominion, gathering like a storm. 3 weeks later, the Kethavari fleet assembled in the Cygnus system. 1,050 warships, the largest force the Dominion had ever gathered in one place. Kethmar looked at his fleet and felt confident again. No enemy could stand against such power. Then his sensors showed him what was waiting for them. The human fleet was already there. Over 4,000 ships hung in space like silent ghosts. They had arrived first. They had been waiting. Admiral Cole's voice came through every speaker on every Kethavari ship. "You came to our world," he said. "You murdered our people. You killed our children and laughed about it. You broadcast their deaths as a warning." The human fleet began to move. 4,000 ships spreading out like the fingers of an angry god. "Consider this our response." Kethmar stared at the screen showing the human fleet. For the first time in his long life, he understood what his victims had felt. He understood the terror of facing an enemy that could not be stopped. He gave the order to attack anyway. He was a warrior. He would die like one. But deep in his heart, he knew the truth. The Kethavari had made a terrible mistake, and now they were going to pay for it. The Battle of Cygnus would be remembered forever. Species across the galaxy would study it, teach it, and fear it for centuries to come. It was the day the universe learned what humans could really do. The Kethavari had numbers on their side, or so they thought. Over 1,000 warships against 4,000 human vessels. But numbers were only part of war. Tactics, weapons, and will mattered just as much. And in all three, humanity was something the Kethavari had never faced before. The battle began with the Kethavari charging forward in their traditional formation. They flew in tight groups, each ship supporting the others with overlapping shields and coordinated fire. This formation had worked against 6 different species. It had never failed. It failed now. Human ships did not fight like the Kethavari expected. They did not stay in neat formations. They did not follow predictable patterns. Instead, they flowed like water around rocks. Small groups would strike at one point, then vanish before the Kethavari could respond. Larger groups would draw attention, while even larger forces attacked from unexpected directions. For thousands of years, humans had fought wars against each other. They had developed tactics for every situation. They had learned to think like their enemies and then think one step beyond. They had practiced the art of killing until it was burned into their very souls. Now all of that terrible knowledge was aimed at the Kethavari. War Chieftain Kethmar shouted orders from his flagship, trying to hold his fleet together. But his captains were not ready for this kind of fight. They had only ever fought enemies who were weaker, slower, and less clever. They did not know what to do against an enemy that seemed to read their minds. Then the human weapons began to show their true power. Railguns fired metal slugs at speeds that made them invisible. Each slug hit with the force of a nuclear bomb. Kethavari's shields, which had stopped everything before, shattered like glass. Ships that took direct hits simply stopped existing, turned to vapor in less than a second. Plasma torpedoes burned through armor like fire through paper. They did not just damage ships, they melted them. Kethavari cruisers that had survived dozens of battles became pools of liquid metal floating in space, and the missiles were the worst of all. Human missiles were smart. They thought. They learned. They watched what the Kethavari did and adjusted. If a ship dodged left, the missile turned left. If a ship used countermeasures, the missile ignored them. They found weak points that should have been impossible to find and struck them with perfect accuracy. Kethamar watched his fleet die. The tactical display in front of him showed ship after ship going dark. Every minute, another dozen vessels vanished. Every minute, the Kethavari fleet grew smaller, while the human fleet stayed almost the same size. He ordered his ships to concentrate fire on single targets. The humans simply spread out, making concentration impossible. He ordered his ships to retreat and regroup. The humans followed, never letting them rest. He ordered his fastest ships to try to flank the human formation. The humans had already sent ships to block them. Everything he tried, the humans had an answer for. It was like fighting a mirror that was always one step ahead. 3 hours into the battle, Kethmar knew the truth. They were not going to win. They were not even going to survive. This was not a battle anymore. It was an execution. He looked at his communications officer. "Open a channel to the human flagship," he ordered. "I wish to negotiate." The channel opened. Admiral Cole's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired, but not happy. There was no joy in his eyes, no celebration, only cold determination. "War Chieftain," Cole said. "What do you want?" "I offer a ceasefire," Kethmar said. "We can discuss terms. We can find a peaceful solution. There has been enough death." Cole was quiet for a long moment. Behind him, Kethmar could see human officers working at their stations. They were calm, professional. They looked like people doing a job they did not enjoy but would finish anyway. "Enough death," Cole repeated. 43,000 people on Haven's Reach. Scientists, farmers, teachers, children. You killed them all, and you laughed while you did it. You sent messages across the galaxy bragging about what you had done. Kethmar opened his mouth to speak, but Cole continued. You did not offer them a ceasefire. You did not offer them negotiations. You gave them nothing but fire and death. We can make reparations, Kethmar said. He could hear the desperation in his own voice. We can pay whatever you demand. We can give you territory, resources, anything. Cole shook his head slowly. No. The channel closed. The battle continued. By the end, only 17 Kethvari ships remained. They were surrounded, their weapons empty, their shields gone. They waited to die. But the killing stopped. Admiral Cole's voice came through their speakers one last time. You will follow us to your homeworld, he said. Your war is over, but our response has just begun. The surviving Kethavari ships, broken and beaten, had no choice but to obey. They fell into formation behind the human fleet and began the long journey home. Behind them, the wreckage of over 1,000 warships floated in the darkness. The largest fleet the Kethavari had ever assembled was now nothing but debris and ghosts. Humanity had lost 47 ships. Every crew member from those ships had been rescued before the end. The Kethavari had wanted war. They had gotten it, and now they would learn what came after. HFY Prime was a beautiful world. Blue oceans covered most of its surface. Green forests spread across its continents. Great cities rose toward the sky, filled with billions of people who had never known invasion, never known fear, never known defeat. That changed when the human fleet arrived. 4,000 warships filled the sky above the planet. They blocked out the sun. They cast shadows over the cities below. Every screen on the planet showed the same image, an endless sea of human vessels, each one carrying enough weapons to burn a continent. The people of HFY Prime looked up and felt what their victims had felt for 3,000 years. Terror. Admiral Cole's transmission played on every screen, every speaker, every device that could receive a signal. People of HFY Prime, he said, your fleet is destroyed. Your stations are gone. Your empire is surrounded. Right now, every weapon in my fleet is aimed at your world. One word from me, and your planet burns. In the cities below, people screamed and ran. They tried to hide in buildings and tunnels underground, but there was nowhere to hide from ships that could see through rock and fire through mountains. The leaders of the Kethvari gathered in their capital building. War Chieftain Kethmar, who had survived the Battle of Sickness, stood among them. They waited for death. Some prayed to gods they had forgotten. Others simply waited in silence. But death did not come. We could destroy you, Admiral Cole continued. It would be easy. It would be fast. By tomorrow, the Kethvari would exist only in history books. And part of me wants that. Part of me wants to give you exactly what you gave Haven's Reach. He paused. The whole planet held its breath. But we are not you. The weapons on the human ships did not fire. Instead, landing craft began descending from the fleet. Not warships, but transports. They landed in the cities, and what came out of them was not soldiers with guns. It was engineers with tools, doctors with medicine, workers with supplies. You will surrender all military forces, Cole said. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. You will hand over everyone who ordered the attack on Haven's Reach. They will face trial for what they did. You will free every species you have conquered in the last 3,000 years, and you will accept human observers in your government for the next century. The Kethavari leaders looked at each other. They had expected death or slavery. They had not expected this. If you do these things, Cole continued, you will live. Your civilization will continue. Your people will survive. But you will never threaten anyone again. You will learn to be neighbors instead of conquerors. You will learn what you should have learned long ago. His image looked down from every screen, and his eyes were hard as steel. Humanity does not seek war. We have spent our history swimming in blood. We have killed more of each other than you have killed of anyone. We know what war costs better than any species in this galaxy. That is why we built our hidden fleet. That is why we kept our true strength secret. We hoped we would never need to use it. He took a breath. But when you hurt our people, when you murder our children, when you laugh at our dead, you leave us no choice. You wake up something old and terrible. You remind us of what we really are. And what we are, what we have always been, is very, very good at war. The transmission ended, but his final words echoed across the planet. Remember that. Tell your children. Tell your grandchildren. Tell everyone who will listen. Humanity prefers peace. We will always offer peace first. We will give you every chance to be friends instead of enemies. But if you choose to be our enemy, if you choose to hurt our people, there will be no second chance. We will come for you, and we will not stop until it is finished. The surrender came within hours. The Kethavari military laid down their weapons. The leaders who had ordered the attack on Haven's Reach were taken to stand trial. Across the old Kethavari dominion, conquered species suddenly found themselves free. Human ships spread through former Kethavari space, but they did not conquer. They helped. They built. They healed. They showed the galaxy that the same species that had destroyed 1,000 warships could also rebuild broken worlds. 1 year later, a memorial was built at the site of Haven's Reach. It was a ring of black stone floating in space, orbiting the quiet star that had watched the colony die. The names of every person who had died there were carved into the stone. 43,000 names: scientists, farmers, teachers, children. Commander Yuki Tanaka's name was at the center, surrounded by the names of her 200 Marines who had fought to the last. Ships from dozens of species came to see the memorial. They came to pay respect to the dead, but also to remember the lesson that Haven's Reach had taught the galaxy. A new saying spread among the stars. Diplomats repeated it. Military officers taught it. Parents told it to their children at night. The humans will give you every chance to walk away. Take it, because there is no second chance. Earth returned to its peaceful ways. People went back to their normal lives. Scientists explored the stars. Families raised their children. Artists made art, and musicians made music. From the outside, humanity looked exactly as it had before, a peaceful species interested in learning and growing. But everyone who looked at Earth now saw something else underneath. They saw the iron behind the smile. They saw the fire behind the kindness. They saw a species that had mastered war so completely that it could choose peace without fear. And deep beneath the surface of Mars, deep in the asteroid belt, deep in hidden places throughout the solar system, the shipyards remained ready. Just in case anyone else forgot the lesson. The galaxy watched humanity return to peace, and it wondered. It wondered what else the humans were hiding. It wondered what else might wake up if someone else made the same mistake that Kethavari had made. But no one wanted to find out. Not anymore.